Hey everybody, John Craig here with Performance Plus Tennis. Welcome to today's lesson. I'm going to cover a topic that often is asked: does height matter on the serve in tennis? And I'm going to answer that question at the very end, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some things that are going to help you understand the differences between being not so tall and being tall in serve, but then we're going to get to the answer at the very end, so stick around. This is going to be a very interesting lesson for you today. Well, first of all, let's just examine the geometry of the court, and of course that's such a big factor in whether height plays into controlling the serve or having a bigger serve or a more effective serve. So if we just use the racket here as an example and say that here's one baseline, here's another, and my finger represents the net. Obviously, a taller server is going to have a steeper angle to dive the ball down over the net into the service box. And there's a point here where it becomes impossible to hit down on the ball. And measurably, that's 6'7" for most players, depending on what their style is. So if you're shorter than 6'7", you're not going to have the sensation or the actuality of the ball leaving your racket and going down. It's actually going to go out first. And in some cases, it might even go up first. So the geometry is going to play a factor. And for that reason, taller players certainly have an advantage in that they have a much higher contact and therefore a steeper angle, and they can take the net out of play and still get the ball in. And that's why we see big servers in recent times like John Isner and other players like that have this huge serves that can get that big bomb in there more consistently. So taller players certainly have an advantage, not only on the angle, but because they have more length, they can also get the end of that whip, that length, to go a little bit faster, so they can generate a little bit more racket head speed. So that is the big difference. And if you're below 6'7", then you can generate almost the same amount of racket head speed in most cases. And certainly the fastest serves in history have been players like Sam Groth, who's I think 6'4". So, you don't have to be 6'11" to create all that power of that racket head speed. It just gives you a steeper angle, better advantage. If you're shorter than 6'7", though, you've got to really think more about hitting up and out on the ball and letting the spin bring it down, and therefore you're not going to get the same amount of power, ball speed, because you've got to use some of that racketed speed to create spin to get the ball to dive in. So that's a bit of a compromise and a difference on the serve. Taller servers can hit flatter serves and get them in more often. Another advantage that you'll see amongst most of the taller servers on tour is that they will be at a steeper angle leaning into contact, and they'll be further into the court. So you could argue that the ball is going to get to the opponent much faster, or certainly a little bit quicker, because they're leaning in and they're getting that ball earlier. They're taking that ball closer to the opponent, so they're able to actually generate more power, get that ball to come quicker, and they can lean in. Now, if they were serving and volleying, that might give them the opportunity to even get a step or two closer to the net so they could take that first volley easily. So I think taller players should be trying to serve and volley more than they actually do. Okay? Now, if you're not 6'7" and you're shorter, and we'll go right to the other extreme, we'll take Diego Schwartzman, for example, who I have seen several times playing live, and he's got an excellent serve. I think he's 5'6", maybe 5'7", but he has an excellent serve. If he's getting his first serve in, most players on tour are not dictating off that first serve to the point where he can't get into the point and feel at least like he's on neutral ground. So his serve is not a liability or a tremendous weakness. His second serve tends to be maybe a little weaker, and some of the players can definitely attack that. But his first serve is pretty solid, and he's, like I said, 5'6", 7", and he's got an excellent serve technique. The difference is, though, is he's not leaning in on a steep angle and getting well into the court. He's actually hitting more up on the ball, and he's more into a little bit more of a vertical position in his setup, and then he goes up to the ball more. So, and he has to generate more spin to get his ball to dive in. So the racket head speed he's using, a portion of that has to be used for spinning the ball, which compromises the ball speed. So he's not hitting his serve as hard as the tall players. Doesn't mean he's not getting as much racket head speed, it just means he has to use it to create a spin to be more consistent on his first serve. And if you look at the history of tennis and look at the history of good servers, most of the good servers in the past were certainly not that tall. In fact, back in I think it was the early 80s, a player came along, his name was Chip Hooper. He was 6'6", and he was like a giant compared to everyone else. Everyone else that was winning and a top player were generally going to be around 6 feet tall. Bjorn Borg was 5'11", Jimmy Connors was 5'10", 5'11", John McEnroe was 5'11", Roscoe Tanner was 6 foot tall, Vitas Gerulaitis was 6 feet tall. That was the standard, and yet those players still served very, very well for the most part. Obviously, Roscoe Tanner had one of the most feared serves in the history of tennis at 6 feet tall. So you don't have to be tall to have a bomb of a serve. You just have to have great technique, great timing. And if you get that down, you can have a great serve and just be an ordinary height like myself at 5'11". So as a final thought and even some words of advice, I think that what we're all trying to do is achieve our full potential, and whatever that is for each individual based on athletic ability. Height is a factor, of course, but if you can get technically skilled on the serve so that you can achieve your full potential, then that's going to be more than adequate to compete at the level you are in whatever age bracket you're in. So I would be less inclined to be worrying about height, and I'd be more focused on the technical elements that are going to allow you to become the best server you can be. And that should be more than adequate to compete at your level and even maybe take you to the next level. So work on the skill of serving. Make sure that you're optimizing your comfortable natural height on contact. Make sure that you're playing with a good rhythm and a good balance, that you're relaxed and fluid, and work on these principles and these concepts on your serve and try to really get that serve to achieve its full potential. And then the rest of your game will follow suit. It'll follow your game. It'll follow your serve. Most good servers, their game follows their serve. You serve poorly, you struggle. You serve well, your game improves and gets better. So get out there and work on the principles, and don't worry about being either 6'5", 6'8", 6'1", 5'8". It does not matter. What matters is how you optimize your potential. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please leave your comments down below, and if you have an idea for a video topic that you'd like me to discuss, go ahead and leave that down in the comments section below. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. We've got a lot more coming here at Performance Plus Tennis. Thanks so much again for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next lesson.